Welcome to the second Inner Explorer session today. It's good to see you all again. Today we're going to be talking about the prefrontal cortex. And last week we talked about the cerebral cortex, which was the outermost layer of the brain. And this is also called the gray area. And I've made a beautiful little illustration here. Sometimes my camera needs to zoom in and out a little bit. But you can see that this is the outer layer of the brain. And if you think about a brain, you often think about this like folded thing, right? Or there's a lot of grooves within it. So what's also actually really nice to share is that these folds that we see in the outer layer of the brain, where a lot of information is being processed continuously, that these grooves are there because there is more surface area that can be covered and more information that can be exchanged in whatever fits in our head. And so, yeah, the small grooves, also called the valleys, are called sulci, and the mountains, like the upper regions, are called gyri. But I thought it was pretty cool that it's so condensed, just like our intestines, that it actually makes folds so it can have more surface area. Well, what we're going to be focusing on today, and if you can see, this is where we focused on in our last session. This is the Broca's area where we produce our speech, right? But we're going to be focusing on this part, which is quite a large part, especially if you compare it to last week's session. It's quite a large part of the front part of our brain. We're also still talking about the frontal lobe. And what we do here is a lot of executive functions, as they call it. And the reason that it's also quite a large area is because there's still being a lot of investigation done on where exactly each activity is taking place. Because if we look at the prefrontal cortex, it's actually responsible for our social behavior, for planning, for also short-term decision-making, our learning working memory, our attention, morality, and last but not least, our postponing of gratification. So this is a lot of things, right? Compared to last week where we only focused on the speech. But it's hard for scientists to find out where exactly this is taking place because there's a lot of overlap in these functions. So it's not just one part of the brain that they see light up when we make, for example, short-term decisions or we contemplate our personality. It's actually covering a large part of the brain. So let's put my art away. And so when we look at the prefrontal cortex, which is really just behind our forehead, we can also find that when individuals sustain damage in this place, in this front part of the brain, they don't necessarily have issues with, for example, the control of their muscles, their motoric skills, or their comprehension skills. But what you often see is that they start making poorer decisions, as we call it. They would make less accepted social, so they would exhibit less accepted social behavior, or they would make poor financial decisions. They have a hard time planning ahead, and it's often seen that they're really in it for short-term gratification. And you might have heard or read about this super famous experiment that was done in Stanford University in the 1960s. And it's called the Marshmallow experiment, the Marshmallow experiment. You might have seen super cute footage of this table and then a kid sitting behind the table and then a marshmallow being planted in front of them. Has anyone ever seen that? Yeah. And the investigation was all about seeing how children would respond to short-term gratification and how that would pan out later in life and how important that was. So what these researchers would do is they would plant this marshmallow and they would tell the kid I come back in 15 minutes, and if the marshmallow hasn't been eaten yet, you're going to get a second marshmallow. And if you look at the footage, for example, on YouTube, it's really, yeah, it's adorable because you see some kids being really anxious, some kids just immediately grabbing it, and some kids are waiting quite patiently. But it's not really only the cute footage that is important, of course, of this study. What's really important, and it's also something that we're going to be journeying into today, is that they continued this investigation for, I think, about 40 years after filming this. And they found that the kids who were able to wait for 15 minutes, so delay their gratification in eating the marshmallow, they would be more successful in many different other areas in their life as they grew up. So the studies would see that the kids who would wait with eating the marshmallow, they would exhibit way better social skills. They would do better on their SATs, like this American big high school test, I think. They would be way less likely to become obese. They would do well in their prospective careers. So that linking that up was a really great discovery, because we could see that delaying gratification and actually seeing that this part was a little bit more developed in some kids, or we were able to train it, of course, as well, is actually also providing success in many other areas in life in the later age. And so also, if we look at the development of the prefrontal cortex, evolutionary, it's one of the latest parts to develop. We also see that it hasn't fully developed by the time that until we're 25. So you may now be excused if you were a teenager with really poor decisions. I definitely was at times. And so until 25, this is not fully developed. And so our decision making is also not fully developed. And yeah, we're going to be journeying into this part today with our meditation. And yeah, that feels complete. So I invite you to take a moment to make yourself really comfortable. Maybe you can challenge yourself if you're quite used to having, for example, your left leg out in front. Maybe you can switch them around now if you sit cross-legged for this meditation.
Hey, before we journey together into the meditation, I want to take a little moment to remind you that this session is shared from the Inner Explorers Club, the online meditation club in which we meditate together live every week on Wednesday. And when you sign up to join, you'll also receive access to an ever-expanding library of bonus content that helps you create a super powerful meditation practice wherever you go. Of course, all the classes are available without commercials, and by joining, you support the continuation and the growth of my free classes on here as well. Join our community, the live classes, and access the bonus sessions via the link in the description of this episode. And for now, I wish you a beautiful journey inwards.
Before you close your eyes, because it's still the morning at the time of this recording, let's take a really nice and deep stretch in the arms. Making some circles with the head, very gently opening up the neck. Turning the other side. And even if you have your legs crossed differently than you would, I'm going to invite you to start off this meditation by actually taking one foot in between your hands now and start shaking it out a little bit. To wake up the body. See if you can allow your foot to go quite limp, numb, and let it be shook. Waking it up, stretching your toes, and then moving on to the other foot. And I don't know about you, but I haven't done my yoga or workout this morning. And we do this because it was even written in the ancient Vedic texts that it's very helpful for our body to be more open when we meditate. So yoga, the asanas, the posture, were more traditionally done before going into meditation because the body felt more open and then the mind would be able to journey in more easily. All right, placing your feet down. And then whenever you're ready, you may close your eyes. And letting this be a gentle reminder as well that even though you've received quite some information about your beautiful brain, there's no need now to intellectualize it any further. The invitation is to see how deeply you can surrender to the experience of being in your body. Breathing in through the nose and exhaling out with a couple rounds of sighing, preferably making some noise, sounding your voice. Notifying your nervous system to find balance. We journey first towards our feet, quite at the opposite end of what we talked about. Noticing what the shaking has done to the aliveness of the feet itself. Perhaps you're noticing that your toes are still adjusting, making some final wiggles. And then we journey the attention from our feet upwards via the calves and via the knees, via the upper legs into the hips. Into the lower belly, and this is where we're going to stay for a moment. And can you give yourself full permission here to let your lower belly hang, let it protrude, let it relax. Noticing if we can even give that same permission into the lower back and into the buttocks, a permission to unclench, allow the tension to melt away into the cushion that it touches. I invite you to imagine that there are two balloons, one in each buttock, and these balloons, they fill up downwards into the buttocks whenever you breathe in. And they naturally deflate a little bit as you exhale. You may choose if you inhale and exhale through the nose, or inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Perhaps you see these balloons visually inside of you, or perhaps you hear the sound that it makes as it inflates on your next inhale. Perhaps it's a simple knowing that it's there. Or if you're more kinesthetic by nature, you might be able to feel how the next inhale fills up into the bottom of the hips, into this balloon breath. And you feel also the very natural and slight contraction that happens on the exhale. You may invite yourself to relax the hips, relax the buttocks a little bit more each time that you inhale into these balloons. Allowing for the exhales to perch you down deeper into the cushion on which you sit. And with hips that experience more relaxation, we journey our attention either via the belly or via the spine upwards, moving past our belly button, past the stomach, as the rib cage, breathing out and in fully into the side of the ribs. And on your next exhale, journeying a little bit further up as the space of the heart. Into the neck, just continuing to breathe deeply. The attention journeys, the neck into our forehead. And as you continue this deep belly breath, without needing to do much, the changes are shifted. Allow your attention to land fully in the forehead and notice how it feels at this moment. Perhaps there are some words of description arising within you, or perhaps it's just a noticing of what it's like right now. From here, I'm going to invite you to take both of your hands and raise them up. And either take the tips of your fingers or the flat of your hand and start making small lines from just above the eyebrow all the way into the center, the middle part of the head, and then stroking backwards. And let's do that a few times. Taking the tips of the finger with a flat hand, and it feels like we're smoothing out our forehead. Bringing any held energy or tension and bring some softness, some soft touch to our own prefrontal cortex. And you can play with the amount of pressure that you're applying. Perhaps you want to be extra soft with yourself this morning, or you could use a little bit more pressure to really feel it. You can play with the speed. Perhaps you want to go extra slow, especially in the mornings. A very gentle touch is always most nourishing, right? It's like this grease lightning move. Let's do two more. These strokes on the forehead. And letting the hands rest on the legs. Noticing how the forehead feels now. you are already experiencing a bit more spaciousness, a bit more freedom here. Now, I want you to think about something that brings you a little bit of gratification. And this can be something that preferably you do every day just to give yourself perhaps a little bit of comfort, like a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, or a piece of chocolate at 4 p.m., as is my advice. What is something that you do almost every day to give yourself some comfort? It has to be on one tiny thing. And if you've found that one thing that gives you that sense of gratification, that sense of comfort, can you already call upon the feeling that you get when you gratify, if you will, when you give in to this little piece of comfort? Is it perhaps some warmth, some sweetness, some energy that you get from it? And perhaps you can even notice that the comfort or the gratification that you get from this mm, this piece of gratification is that somewhere present within your body as well. Does it open up your heart a little bit, perhaps, or does it open up your mind? Mm. And even if the feeling is only very slight, or you just know this feeling of gratification, I invite you to hang on to it for a while longer. As we slowly start moving out of this meditation, before opening up the eyes, take another big yet gentle stretch. Welcoming yourself back into the space in which you sit. And softly opening your eyes, the light that comes in. And so this feeling, or this knowing that you experienced when you gave in to that thing that you do to give yourself comfort during the day, we journeyed into that because I want you to be invited continuously to see that you can actually call upon that feeling already without needing to do the action. But of course, we're still gonna often do the action because it makes us feel good. So a little challenge that I have for you today, and I was thinking also last night, like, oh, is this challenge gonna be something I do in every class? But I think it's nice because then you're not just meditating, but you're also looking at the power that you have during the day, during the daily life that you go into after your meditation. So the challenge, I mean, challenge is a big word, but the invitation is that next time you go into this, either your vice or this gratification, see if you can notice yourself doing it. See if you can notice yourself walking to the cupboard or walking to the coffee machine. And see if you can take a pause, stop yourself, and check if you can wait for another 15 minutes. Just like in the Stanford experiment with the marshmallows. See if you can allow yourself to wait 15 minutes. And then with that, promising yourself that when you do give into this gratification, you're going to enjoy it with every fiber of your being. So with all your senses, you're really going to be present with that gratification. And we do this, like I said, to show how much power you actually have. It can actually give us confidence to see that we are not a slave to our habits. And that when we do decide to give into something, it can feel really good. We can allow ourselves that, right? Then, yeah, I'm going to close this class, this session. Beautiful to journey with you into the prefrontal cortex today. And yeah, thank you for showing up this session to yourself, exploring yourself in this way. And I'll see you at the next one. Bye. Have a beautiful day.
If you enjoyed this eccentric journey, then please take a moment to like or share this episode, whatever feels right for you to do on the platform that you're tuning in from, because it actually helps greatly with the growth and the creation of this meditation channel. Thank you.